Happy Monday, Liberty lovers. And before we get into today's wild and wacky show with the boys from Tasting Anarchy, I want to tell you about another Libertarian podcaster, our friend Anthony Samaroff. He is not only the host of the Scottish Liberty podcast, he is also the host of the Be Yourself and Love It podcast. He's also written a book that I have read called How to Make Small Talk. And Anthony is a real expert when it comes to helping people learn how to overcome social anxieties, learn how to create and engage in small talk. And Anthony has a great offer for Lions of Liberty listeners right now. He is offering a free, that's right, completely free, no strings attached at all, 1-hour coaching session on how to overcome social anxieties, how to create small talk, how to engage with complete strangers on a whim. And I can attest, even as someone who has been a podcast host for over 6 years, who has had to think on the fly and create conversations with guests I've never met before in my life, even I was able to take something away from spending an hour with Anthony, although he did call me an advanced student. So take that for what you will. But I highly recommend taking advantage of this offer. These are the kind of skills that can help you in every aspect of life. So please do reach out to Anthony if you're interested in this offer. You can email him at Antony, that's not Anthony, Antony, Antony, at beyourselfandloveit.com. You can also just direct message him on Facebook or hit me up if you have trouble getting a hold of him, but he's pretty easy to reach. So please do reach out to Anthony Samaroff for a free coaching session. Just tell him Lions of Liberty sent you.
Welcome to the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here's your host, your guide, your shining beacon of liberty, Marc Claire.
All right, I am here with a couple podcast libertarian friends of mine. They are just like many of my podcast friends. I only know them in internet life, but hopefully if Chillderburg still happens, I'll meet you guys in real life. I'm here with Jacob, Linzy, and Mason Joseph of Tasting Anarchy. Gentlemen, are you ready to roar?
Yes,
sir.
Excellent. I thought you might, because this is Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor, so I know you guys are boozing it up today, too. So before we dive into your background, talk about your podcast a little bit, the most important question after, of course, establishing that you are indeed ready to roar is, what are you guys drinking? Jake, we'll start with you. What are you drinking out there? You're in Austin, Texas, I believe.
No. I'm outside of Dallas, Arlington, Texas. So,
whatever.
Yeah.
Starts with an A, okay?
Yeah, close enough. And it's Texas. It's only 4 hours away. That's pretty close. So, this week I'm drinking Bolin Vineyards 2017 Merlot. It's from Texas High Plains. It's a Texas wine. For people who didn't know, Texas does make wine. They make good wine. This is a vineyard that I've harvested at, and I know the grower is Rowdy Bolin, and he sent this to me, and it's very good. Something that's kind of different about Merlots from Texas is they tend to brick them for a long time, so they're very high alcohol. This is 14.82% alcohol by volume, which is high for a Merlot. And it's good. It's very Texas Merlot. It's very jammy, very fruity. It's got a lot of tannins, which is a little bit unusual for a Merlot. Merlots are usually a little more subdued. If you were to compare this to a California Cab Sauv, that's probably more along the lines of what it's like than a California Merlot or a Merlot from France or something like that. So it's very bold.
Yeah, and you guys are definitely going to be giving the most detailed answers to the question of what are you drinking that we ever got on the show, largely due to your background and what you guys do. But Mason, what about you? What are you drinking over there?
So
You're
in
Virginia, I believe.
Yes, I'm in Virginia, in Tidewater area of Virginia, or Norfolk if you like. So I've got Altamarfa's 2019 Rosé of Tempranillo. It's also called Laser Cat, and I wish I had a camera, but it's got this cool cat laser blasting a glass of wine. So this is actually from Texas Hill Country.
It's on
the back. It's Texas Hill Country.
Yeah, that's where the grapes are sourced. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting you. Continue.
No. It's funny because it's
the nature of these shows are interrupt each other. That's what
exactly.
We do
so
on LALDL.
But what's funny is on the back it's Mason Wine Growers LLC, Mason, Texas. I did not know this. So this is a rosé, which is very popular right now, but it's of a unique varietal because it's a Tempranillo. So this is the first time
Tempranillo rosés were even a thing that existed.
Yeah, neither did I until Jacob said he acquired some of this from our friend Ricky. So then we ended up getting this. Jacob, have you had any of this yet?
No, not yet. I've been saving it.
So it's like I've got it super chilled. It was actually almost kind of frozen because I put it in the freezer as soon as I got home because I had it like too warm, and rosé
Okay.
like I like it a little more chilled.
Yeah.
But it is like very tart, almost sour, but in like the perfect way. So it's like a sour beer rosé Tempranillo. So
Interesting.
it's 10.4 alcohol by volume. I have the 78th of 114 bottles, according to the front.
Yeah.
So like the label's like all hand drawn. It's awesome. So
Yeah. So Ricky,
Jacobs actually knows Ricky too. So.
yeah. So Ricky, he's starting a new vineyard out near Marfa, Texas, which is out in the middle of nowhere. And I helped him plant his vineyard, but these grapes are sourced from hill country. So his company's Alta Marfa, and that's where that's like the only town near where his vineyard is. And it's pretty cool. It's just out in the middle of nowhere, but he's an awesome dude. What's that?
UFO hotspot.
That's right.
Now
yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it is a UFO hotspot. I didn't see any while I was out there. I did see border control blimps, which I thought was interesting. I never knew that those existed.
Could that be what is responsible for some of the UFO sightings?
Possibly.
Is it a saucer-shaped blimp?
I was going to say, because
there's
it's out by the Chihuahua Desert, so there might be just some really messed up people.
Yeah, there's that's right. There's something called like the Marfa lights out there or something, where you can go out there and you can just see these crazy lights in the sky at night. And I didn't see them, but I'm going to be back out there again if all things go as planned again at the end of next month to plant the next batch of vines. But yeah, he's a great guy. He's a young guy. I think he's in his late 20s. He's from well, he lives in Houston now, but I think he's from the Bay Area.
Yeah, actually, I think he is from the Bay Area, if I remember correctly.
And real nice guy. We're going to have him on the show again to talk about Lasercat, which is his very first. He's made wines for himself, but this is his very first commercial wine. So very limited. Yet, so Rosé of Tempranillo is a very unusual rosé. I'm sure other people have done it, but he did it. And rosé, to make a rosé, it's not a particular grape. It's a technique that you use to make a rosé wine. And so white wines are taken off the skins and vine, and that's how you get a white wine. Red wines are on the skin and vine, and that's how you get a red wine, and then it imparts all the flavors from the skins and vine. And then a rosé starts out on the skin and vine, and then you pull it off. And a lot of times, this is what usually they'll do is to make a stronger, more concentrated red wine, they'll pull a little bit off, make a rosé out of it, and then they'll leave the rest to concentrate the rest of the skin and vine flavors into it. So it makes it more aggressive and bold. And then what you got on the side is a rosé. Now, I think that Ricky just made a rosé. So they just started the fermentation, pulled, I think it's called must. They pulled all the skin and vines off and then discarded that, I guess. And
learning so much from you guys about wine already. This is already the most educational episode of Lions of Liberty.
When it comes to wine, you guys have some pretty educational episodes.
I guess we do. I like to
say you guys have had Walter Block on, right? So
that's true. I bet you guys know more about wine than him, though.
He doesn't drink, so that dashed one of our greatest hopes.
I know, he was a teetotaler. I was so upset.
It's always so sad when you find out one of your heroes doesn't drink, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you guys actually email him to get him on the show, and then he just said, "I don't drink"?
No, Walter Block Week on Tom Woods. Tom was talking about like having a drink with him or something like that. The next time they saw him was, just kind of, "Hey, I'm so glad to see you," sort of thing. And he goes, "Oh, wait, yeah, you don't drink." And so,
but
Tom Woods does. Yeah, he probably would. I actually, we reached out to Bob Murphy once, and he was too busy. Yeah, he does, but he also. I was asking him about trade policy when it comes to wine, and he's like, "I don't really know anything about that." And I was like, "I don't really care specifically about wine."
Come on, you're smart. You can probably say something. Yeah. We don't care.
Right? I just trade policy. That's what I wanted to know about.
Like, look, we're giving you a unique angle to talk to something about. And that's I think now that Bob has a show and he's got to produce so much more content.
Yeah,
I think he'll get that more from requests for shows like ours, where it's like, "Yeah, we know you're not a wine expert. We'll bring the wine expertise. We just want to know trade policy."
Hey, I was on your show, and I know nothing about wine except that I like to drink it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of which, that brings me to my drink here. We have a little bit of a theme because I have a cat on my bottle too. It's not a laser cat, sadly. This is a Gato Negro. It's a Cab Sauv, as you say in the shorthand of the biz.
Yeah.
From San Pedro, Chile.
Oh, nice.
So,
I love Chilean wines.
13% by volume. can't go wrong with like the Chilean wines, Argentinian wines. They're always super cheap, especially, man, I spent about a month in Argentina a few years ago. Whew, you go to the store and you're getting really decent wines for $2-3. It's amazing.
Chile's weird because they still haven't figured out how to price their wine yet. And you can get bottles that are like the equivalent of like a $50 bottle for like $15 here. It's crazy.
Yeah, I will gladly admit this was like a $9 bottle of wine, and it's pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
I typically don't spend more than $9 or $10 on wine unless it's a real occasion, because I find, from my taste point of view, I can't really tell the difference from like a $9 bottle or an $18 bottle. I can tell the difference between a $9 and maybe $100 wine. Then I might tell the difference. But when we're talking about these small price ranges, to me, it's all the same.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like what you'll see a lot of times with like the difference between, at least in my opinion, an 8 and an 18 is consistency in the vintage. Whereas like a lot of times like 8, it's like, you don't know what you're getting. 18, it's kind of like a commercial price. So it's like, oh, this has got to be somewhat consistent. So you'll kind of get like a more consistent product. But then it's funny because it'll turn around like when you get in those higher prices, you'll get like just super exotic stuff where it's like, yeah, we did this one year. We'll never do it again. Yeah. So sorry, here you go. $1,000.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, you get like, there's up in Napa, there's this company called like not Thunderbird. That's a hobo wine. It's called like, it has something to do with a bird. I don't remember what it is, but like those wines retail for like $1,000 a bottle. And I don't know why. I've never had one, of course. I think Mason, you and I had the most expensive bottle I ever had, which was $200. And that was actually very good. But the thing is like for me, you can have like Pina, which was one that Mason and I had that we refer to a lot as a Cab Sauv. It's very good as $100. But you can get like for Cab Sauvs, like my favorite Cab Sauvs are from Oakville in Napa, and a $50 Oakville like Groth or something like that, and a $200 Oakville are a lot of times not that different. And it may be because my palate's not refined enough, but like, you're going to be hard pressed to find something from Oakville that's less than $50. You can find it, but it's not as much. But it's to me, it's not necessarily price point. It's like where it's from. That's where you start getting these kind of more specific flavors and stuff. Whereas when you go for something that's usually like less expensive, like under sub $10, then it's not necessarily from a specific place. It's from California, which is a freaking huge state. So, where is that coming from? Well, it's a little from Lodi, a little bit from, Sonoma, a little bit from here, a little bit from there. And then you get a kind of a blended, and what they're doing is they're blending for consistency year to year. Yeah. And so you get something that's a consistent product.
What advice would you guys have for wine newbies or people that are sort of like me, that like basically know nothing about wine? Like I know that a Cab is different than a Merlot or whatever, but I can't really tell you too much more than that. And I couldn't even really tell you what the difference really is. What advice would you give to someone who's, I don't know, maybe they're just diving into the dating world for the first time? That's maybe nobody is right now. I don't know if dating is legal in a lot of states right now with coronavirus. Right. But maybe they're just thinking, okay, I got to get a bottle of wine for tonight. I want to kind of impress this chick. I want to have something good, but I don't want to break the bank. So what would your advice be to someone like that going to the store who doesn't really know what the hell they're doing?
Well, the first thing is always, and this is kind of something that Jacob and I definitely skew against, and this is just us, generally you're planning a meal. So what are you going to be serving? Are you going to be serving like poultry and fish with like a light sauce? So maybe you want a white, or are you doing like a steak, kind of like going all out, or like definitely a red meat? So maybe you want more of a red. So
what if it's just Netflix and chill? what goes best with Netflix? Yeah.
Thunderbird,
Mad Dog 2020.
Yeah. No. So from that standpoint, like it really, what I usually always say is like, if you go in there, if you're buying something that's on sale and it's normally $40 and it's normally $40 and it's discounted down, yeah, you can generally pick up a pretty good deal and do pretty well. And you don't have to admit it was on sale. But like, it really kind of depends on your palate. Like, do you like something that's drier, like more acidic? Do you want something that's sweeter? So like, if you like a sweeter wine, you're generally going to be looking at whites in general. I mean, there are definitely non-sweet whites, but whites generally are the more sweeter wines, or like some rosés. And then like
the ladies always love the rosés.
yeah.
Well, a lot of people do because, and that's actually kind of how I would recommend it is get something that's easy to drink. And rosés, where you can get a dry rosé. Dry means that it has very low sugar in it. It's reminiscent of sweetness because it has a lot of fruit flavors in it.
Mm-hmm.
So like, saying whatever the ladies like, typically speaking, women have a sweeter palate than men and would prefer something with more fruit forward flavors. And so a rosé is a good pick. If you happen to know their taste or whatever, they like pear or cider or something like that, you go with one of the dry whites, and it's that's great pool drinking or something like that. So to start out, what I would say, like to kind of like step back and not even talk about the occasions or anything like that, is if you're trying to get into the wine world, you're not just picking up a bottle of wine to have that night, is to go with single varietals first and kind of establish what those are. You can get really good single varietals, and a varietal is a type of grape. So like Cabernet Sauvignon is a type of grape. Merlot is a type of grape. But then you get things like Bordeaux. That's not a type of grape. That's a region, but wine is called Bordeaux because it's from that region. But in the New World, the United States and South America and Australia and stuff, basically anywhere not Europe, they don't name wines by the grape. They name them by the region in Europe. And out of Europe, they name them by the grape, or they'll say red blend if it's a blend.
Or they'll give it fun names like Laser Cat.
Yeah, Laser Cat, exactly. And then it'll say it down. So if you're trying to get into the world, then that's kind of where you start is start figuring out and the thing is too, is don't just try one, get one. If you don't like it, that's fine. Don't write it off immediately. Like that's kind of what I did at first. At first I thought at first I thought I only liked blackberry wine.
Nauseatingly sweet.
Yeah, it is incredibly sweet, but it tasted kind of like juice. So I was like, oh, this is good. But all the wine I had prior, I didn't like it. And then
it seems like it tastes like the fake wine that they give you at bar mitzvahs. yeah,
it is. It's basically that. It's like bar mitzvah wine, but it's like for kids. So, but it does have alcohol. So like that's a good place to start actually. But then if you are going to look for things to pair, then there's a rule of thumb is what grows together goes together. So if you're going to have an Italian meal, look for an Italian wine that is from that area. And then there's general rules of thumb, like Mason was saying, fish and poultry goes well with white wine typically, unless it's duck, then it's fatty and
it's very fatty wine, acidic wine.
Yeah, but then
I really should have eaten before this show because every time you mentioned food, I want it. I'm like, duck. Why am I craving duck right now?
Yeah, right. Well, and that's kind of like there's like general rules of thumbs that help you out, but for the most part, I would say go with single varietals first. Cab, the standards: Cab, Merlot, Zinfandel in America. Zinfandel can be very inexpensive and it's very good and it's very fruity. White
definitely
Zinfandel,
get a Lodi Zin.
Yeah, Lodi Zins are great. White Zinfandel, which is actually more along the lines of a rosé. If you have somebody that you're drinking with that has a sweeter palate, that's very easy, very accessible wine. A lot of people fall in love with wine through White Zinfandel or rosés, and so that's just kind of general, I guess, rules for people who want to get into it.
Yeah.
So really, people should go listen to Tasting Anarchy.
Yeah.
If they want to do an even deeper dive.
Exactly. And that's the thing is like Jacob and I spent like the first part of the show, like he was just buying Cab Sauv after Cab Sauv. And I would just be like, all right, this week, for the next 4 weeks, we're doing Pinot Grigio. Let's see what this is like. And then get one from like New Zealand, get one from Chile, get one from the New World. And you're like, these all taste the same. And now if we go back, we're all like, these are all completely different.
Yeah, it is. It over time, your palate kind of refines a little bit. And I think, especially for me, because like my price point changed when I moved. And so I do tend to drink things that are a little bit more expensive now. And that is, I still like cheap wine. Like I still sometimes get the $3.50 wine at Lidl or at not Lidl, it's Aldi here.
Yeah.
But like, and that's good. That's good for getting sloshed or whatever. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit nicer and a little bit more refined, there's a wide range of price points. And at this point, I'm probably the over $30 price point when I actually want to drink something that I want to enjoy.
And I'm just like cheap as crap.
Yeah.
How'd you guys get started with all this? I mean, you guys are BFFs. You live in different states. I imagine at some point you lived in the same state. But how'd you guys meet? How'd you guys develop your mutual affection for both libertarianism and wine? How did this all come together?
Mason, can I tell a story of our first meeting real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I can't wait. Let me fill my glass first. It sounds like it's going to be a romantic one.
Oh,
yeah. Well, it is. Well, so Mason and I were both just out of high school, maybe a year or two out. I think Mason, you just come back from college and started going.
I was in my third year of college. Now Jacob and I are like 3 months apart in age, but Jacob was 1 year behind me in school. So this was after your sophomore year of college, and then it would have been after my junior year when I transferred back from North Carolina, NC State. And started going to the local community college. Right.
So he and I were both like kind of at a loss for finding friends. Like all my friends had moved away, and this was the year Bob Barr was running for president. I think actually it was still a couple months before that. But I had this like crazy falling out in high school with the Young Republicans. I used to run the Young Republicans in high school, and then I had this falling out over the Iraq War because like I was told it was going to be over in like 3 months, and then it ended up being my entire high school life. And I was like, they lied. Like, this is not what it was. And so I had a kind of a falling out. So I was like, I'm going to go start my own thing called YAC, Young American Conservatives. And I did. And it was just all the Young Republicans. And then after that, so everybody all moved away. And I was kind of exploring stuff, trying to look for like, mostly I wanted what I thought conservatives were, but also anti-war. And anti this war in particular. I hadn't kind of gone to like the peace route yet or anything, but
the Iraq War was just so obviously bullshit that I think a lot of people that even might have been like, well, okay, this war might be justified. That war might be justified because we need to defend ourselves. That one was just so obviously unjustified and such an obvious disaster that I think it did wake a lot of people up into what might eventually become a more complete anti-war position.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of where I was like, I realized that, and also it was part of it was very personal for me as well, because my dad was gone in Iraq for almost my entire high school career, in Iraq and Afghanistan. So, and so like, I didn't see my dad for like some of the most important time of my growing up. Like I needed my dad, and he was off fighting some bullshit war that, I didn't think he should have been doing, but, not to knock my dad or anything. It was, that's just what he did. But, anyway, so then I found the Libertarians, and I was like, I'm going to go kind of see what this is all about. And I remember coming in, it was at a bar, Kelly's Tavern. It's like what would you call it, Mason? It's like a restaurant, it's like a local Applebee's, but like with a Irish flair. Yeah. So it's kind of, not anything special, but they were having the Libertarian meetings there. And I remember coming in, I think I was like the third person there. And Jessica, who's actually now on city council in Virginia Beach, introduced me to Mason. She said, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you," or whatever. "This is Mason. He's our local drug expert." Resident drug expert. That's right. So, and I remember, and our first conversation was about drugs. And I remember like me going like, well, maybe I can get on board with like legalizing steroids, but marijuana, that's crazy.
Steroids was your go-to. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And Mason's going, I think they should put LSD in the drinking water. And
we're talking.
That was our introduction. So we just hit it off. We just kept going to those meetings, and we're friends.
We kept being the ones who showed up. That was the big thing. And like the big thing about Jacob is like Jacob's 6'6", and I'm nowhere near that tall, but like for the longest time I just had super long, like bushy hair and was incredibly loud. So like you have physically the most dominating person in the room because he's like 6'6", and then like I'm just louder than everybody. So it's just him and I getting like hammered and talking to each other about comics and zombies and like libertarianism and going from there. And like I had like gone to school at NC State like for nuclear engineering, and then just got to the point where like I couldn't do the math anymore, and there was no way I was going to figure it out. Like the teacher literally was like, "Yeah, we're 6 math classes ahead of where you should be if you were in a math program, and most of you in math wouldn't actually take this subject." But like I had to take it, and I was like, what?
Way to motivate me before I dive into this math bullshit.
Yeah, and so I was working for the school, so I guess I technically worked for the state for a while, and like in their IT department for like the students, like student help and like classroom support. And everybody around me started like kind of pulling for Obama. And then like it was John McCain and Obama. And I was like, I'm going to find something else. And then like there were two people who were in this class that I was taking like when I transferred to the local community college, and they were like, oh yeah, like blah, blah, blah. And they would make fun of like everything the teacher said that had any political reference. And it was like all from a libertarian slant. So this was this guy, Mike Lowry, that we knew. And then this other guy who ended up never like came to one meeting one time. And then in the other class, somebody else invited me to the Young Libertarians of Tidewater event. So I showed up and I invited the guy, Mike Lowry, and he like had co-founded it, and he just hadn't been showing up because he had been working or something.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, and then like Jake started showing up, and then like I met my wife there. Like, you know, this became like a big thing for us. So
yeah. And then
Jake ended up being like the president, and like I was the treasurer, and I embezzled all the money because that was just fun.
Putting LSD in the water.
Yeah, it was along those lines.
I think we end up just because for a while, like, so it's always the elections is when people showed up. So the first one was Bob Barr, and I actually was a big Bob Barr supporter at the time. And he really, it's weird to say this because, you know, we make fun of people who came on because of Gary Johnson, but like I'm a hardcore, you know, Rothbardian anarchist now. But back then Bob Barr really appealed to me. He was palatable.
And that's an argument that Walter Block has made several times. I actually saw him make this argument. It was at the Mises Bash at the LNC the other year. This is what his subject of his speech was. He was basically saying it's better to always have a libertarian candidate, as in that meaning someone with an L next to them, even if they're not libertarian, even if they're terrible on many issues, even if they're only good on maybe one or two things, even if they're not, because just having the word out there in the presidential election gets more people hearing the word, even if they might get an initial impression that isn't exactly what you and I might want it to be, or even close. It still can get people in the door, and then at that point, it's the job of us, the real philosophers, the people that are really hardcore on the ideology, to kind of teach people and say, okay, well, this guy is the guy that you saw, but and we agree with him on this thing that he said and this thing that he said, but here's where we don't really agree, and then kind of bring them down that rabbit hole further, as opposed to, you know, many people would say you'd have to have the most pure libertarian candidate because he has to be, you know, giving all the right positions all the right times so people don't get the wrong idea. I don't know where I fall on it, to be honest, because I think people like you yourself said you kind of got into this during the Bob Barr times. I've heard other people who have become amazing libertarians who did get into it due to Gary Johnson, and all it wasn't Gary Johnson per se, it wasn't Bob Barr per se, it was just a human being with a different word saying slightly different things, and then that kind of leads you down the path of at least realizing there's another thing, you know, regardless of whether that person is representing it fully.
I think the biggest issue that we have to look out for is not having situations where people like Mary Ruwart, who would have been an amazing actual candidate and like would have probably pulled so many more people to the party had she been allowed to run, not allowing electoral politics poison those people's runs. It's kind of like that particular election with Bob Barr, like Wade Allen Root, and this is like old school in like inside baseball or whatever, but Wade Allen Root and Bob Barr really railroaded Mary Ruwart on that. And she's actually the one who kind of made me an anarchist, is reading her book, Healing Our World, because I also found her incredibly palatable too, because great book. And also
she's the first person I would send to anyone that comes from the perspective of like, you know, the left or progressiveness or caring for the poor. I mean, she's so good at communicating ideas in a way. I mean, you can never read her writing and think, what a heartless bitch. I mean, exactly. She comes across so amazingly, and she's been amazing. She's been on this show.
Yeah. I've bought probably 50 copies of Healing Our World over the last several years and given them out to people, because I do think that, especially for people who are, in my religious perspective, this is something that appeals to them a lot as well, because it is a lot of it's very in line with like a lot of I'm a Quaker, for anybody who doesn't know. So like for a lot of Quakers, they tend to be very left leaning, and it's a book that is about helping people, and that is the like key component of Quaker like belief or whatever is that they do really care about people, like legitimately care about helping people, which is refreshing. But they a lot of times want to go about it in a way that is on its surface looks like it's helping, but it's not. Like it's you know, things like supporting Obamacare or whatever like that, where like, you know, on its surface, sure, that seems like it's going to help a lot of people, and I'm sure it helps somebody, But ultimately, there's a lot more damage that's done, and you take away liberty as a result, and that is not helpful as well. So like I've given away that book to so many people, and a lot of people who have read it and been like, wow, I thought, what, like you were saying, I thought libertarians were heartless assholes or heartless bitches, and they read this, or even like Harry Brown, like they read that kind of stuff and they're like, wow, this is not what I thought at all.
Right.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing that kind of makes Jacob and I laugh all the time is, we are, like, we both were pretty big Bob Barr supporters. And then we had people who were like, oh, what about this Ron Paul guy? And we're like, yeah, shut up about the Republican. and now have both kind of been like, I wish we had really kind of been paying attention to what he had actually been saying instead of because for both of us, and this is kind of like that, thing Walter Block was saying about like having the L, and the L is important. Like we both were like, no, he's got the R. And there's
you were
no
actually
way
trapped in the team mentality yourselves in a sense.
I think both of us. Well, I don't know about Mason so much, but I was like super butthurt about the Republicans. Like I had not been treated very well when I ran the Young Republicans in high school, and I had not been treated well. This was actually in the 2012 election. I had been just totally like railroaded by the Young Republicans in Norfolk, because
it's like Mary Ruwart, they railroaded you.
Yeah. I mean, I had much butthurt from the Republicans. I felt like I had personally been betrayed multiple times by people that I knew and thought were my friends.
Yeah, and that was the thing is, I think like one of the things that Jacob and I talked about many times is we still were under the impression that like Ron Paul stood a chance of getting the nomination, not like, hey, he's doing this, he's sacrificing this so much of his life for the message and the cause, which we got behind later and we understood. We were still thinking from an electoral politics standpoint of, no, he's running, and if he gets it, he's going to have to play ball with people like Romney. He's not a Trump where it's like, no, I can just literally evict you from the party. I control the rules now. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, he's not that guy. So, like, to us, it was like, well, they're going to wrap him around his finger and he's not going to get us out of the wars. And not, hey, it's the message of we shouldn't have been in the wars in the first place. We're like, both of us were far enough down the rabbit hole to be like, yeah, we shouldn't be there. What's the point? Like, go with the guy who's like talking about doing the other stuff. And now you look back and you look at what Bob Barr was saying, you're kind of like, I guess we should have really been paying more attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I was into this stuff before that 2008 run, and but Ron Paul was one of the reasons I got into it, even before he ran for office. Howie, who you guys know from the show, he turned me on to his writing back like eight years or so before he even ran for president. So I was really into him.
Ran for president the next time because he ran.
Yeah, not the 88 time, right? I mean, yeah, the time we all know about in like 2008. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was like a revelation because I really paid little attention to the Libertarian Party. I had voted for Michael Badnarik in 2004, but it was really more of just, here's these other guys. I know that I generally believe this philosophy, but I don't know much about the party. But I'm voting for this guy over John Kerry and George Bush.
Yeah.
No question about it. But I knew nothing about the guy. I knew nothing about the inner party politics or anything like that. But for me, Ron Paul running was like amazing because I had already been following his writing just as a guy, like not even thinking about the political side of it as much as just his philosophical side of things. So then to see him running for president, I was like, wow, this isn't going to go anywhere, but cool. I mean, this is awesome. I'll pay attention. And it went so much farther than I ever imagined. I thought he would be truly ignored, and he was truly ignored in the sense of the mainstream media, but I never imagined the brush fire that would be lit by him. I mean, I was part of it. He got me fired up just seeing him on TV, seeing him get bashed by moderators. I mean, it really exposed the system to me, exposed that everyone up there was just laughing and mocking him, including the moderators themselves. And you're like, okay, these are the guys that are supposed to be presenting the journalistic, non-biased view of things, and they're clearly in the bag against this guy. So something is amiss here. And I just got really inspired by seeing him never, ever back down, even when he was asked to apologize, even when he was asked, do you really think we should legalize heroin? He'd be like, what, are you all going to do heroin now if we don't, if we legalize it? I mean, he just had a way to, and I always knew, like, okay, this guy's not going to be the president. But I realized at some point that not only was he just exciting me, he was exciting other people too. And I think there's something to be said, like the most important thing in inspiring people is exciting them. Like get people excited about ideas, and then you'll see them working for them. And I think he got so many people working for the ideas on top of just inspiring them. I mean, he led directly, I'd say, to the creation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. And I guess, in some ways, as maybe a grandchild, you might consider your podcast in a sensitive way.
Exactly.
Get into that.
Yeah, well, I mean, because your show kind of, I mean, I had been doing other podcasts, but not political podcasts prior to Tasting Anarchy, but like hearing Alliance of Liberty in the infancy of like libertarian podcasting. Right. Going like, well, these guys are just normal guys. Like they can do a podcast, and that's kind of where. And Mason,
these guys aren't that smart.
Well, I mean, like it wasn't like it was. You guys started around the same time as Tom Woods, and Tom Woods is a PhD. And
1 month before Tom Woods, I was like, all right, corner of the market, and we're going to be the Libertarian Podcast. I'm going to do interviews every week. No one else is going to do that. And then Tom Woods shows up 5 days.
5 days.
Okay. Right. All right. Well, maybe there's some competition here.
Yeah. Well, and that was kind of the thing. Is like Tom Woods is great and all that sort of stuff, but it's a little bit intimidating because he is a PhD and a very smart guy and has the connections and that sort of stuff.
And then often has PhDs on.
Exactly.
He's not talking to, Joe Blow like beats. And not that you guys necessarily do this, but having us on and having, like guys like Howie and like having these other people on where it's like, okay, you're not going like, oh, and Walter Block's back for his 15th appearance. And today we're discussing the esoteric rise of Trump trade policy on, like that's the thing. Is so like, one of the things I wanted to mention is like,
like for nerds like us, that content might be really good at sometimes, but
exactly.
I can't send that to all my friends and say, listen to this nerdy shit.
And that's the thing is like, one of the things I think that we don't quite put together a lot of times is I think Trump studied how Ron Paul presented himself in the debates of just going, if I just don't back down at all, like I don't give any ground, they're going to try to bury me, but I have the money to just keep showing up. Right. So like, I think like he took a huge amount of his stuff from that run and just he was like they
Ron
don't
Paul,
know how to deal with this.
Yeah, he was like Ron Paul without the solid principles, but with way more money. I mean, imagine if Ron Paul had money, like a lot of it.
And like, this is the thing is like, I think he also has like the chutzpah to be like,
sure, yeah,
I don't care what you think because I'm richer than you are. Right. And that's all that matters. And it's like, okay, yeah, you have the microphone. And then like Michael Bloomberg got up there and he's like, I've got more money than you. And he's like, but you don't have the balls to talk about it like I do.
I think that is the big difference. I mean, people talk about money in politics all the time. And of course, money influences politics. But when we're talking about persuasion game, like you can't really put a price tag on that. And yeah, Trump had his own money, but he spent way less than Hillary Clinton did. And it was almost all his own money. He didn't have to solicit donations from big donors. He didn't have to sell himself out to anybody. He got to basically just do whatever he wanted. But it was less his money. His money enabled him, of course, in many ways to even have the platform in the first place. But it was really his persuasion game and his chutzpah, as you say, Mason, his ability to not back down because he doesn't have to. He's not owned by anybody. I mean, maybe he is owned now by the military-industrial complex in some way, shape, or form. We could argue that all day long. Yeah. But at the time of his run and that the way he was successful, it was because he didn't give a shit. I mean, essentially, he didn't have to give a shit.
Right, and that's it's very interesting. Like if you read his book, The Art of the Deal, like a lot of the stuff he talks about. Well, I think that was ghostwritten, but like for the most part. It is a lot of his personality in it, and this book.
You don't think Trump was sitting there on Microsoft Word, like typing?
I'm sure. Well, I mean, like, have you ever heard Penn Jillette talk about him from The Apprentice? Like how bizarre of a human being he is?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Well, reading The Art of the Deal, while I was reading it, I was kind of like in my mind going like, what was it like to be the ghostwriter for this? Because you had to follow him around. Right. This is a guy who doesn't love music, doesn't like music. Like it's a very
so weird. People that don't like music are weird. I can get into not liking certain kinds of music, but not liking the concept of music is like, whoa, that's weird.
Yeah, like if you're like, oh, I don't get it, and you're like, what? Well, everybody likes something. Like Mason loves Modest Mouse.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like I'm tone deaf and like I can't carry a beat. So for a long time, like it's like Lions of Liberty, Tom Woods, Jason Stapleton. A few weird crime podcasts, and I didn't listen to music at all. Like after I'd been listening to Modest Mouse, because like I can't follow a song and a story. Like so, when you're singing a song and there's a story in it, I can't follow it. So I can imagine growing up if you were like a little bit more down the road of like not being like, and I also don't have a good mental like projection. Like I can't like visualize things very much well anymore. So like, if you don't have like that sort of mind, like I could totally just being like, this is annoying. Like I'm closer to that. Like I get like not liking music. Now I love music and I listen to music. Like I've got a 3-year-old and like we put music on, she dances, like we goof off with music. Like I've made it, like I've worked harder to have it more in my life and I can kind of enjoy it better than I used to. But like, if I get on a kick where like I'm not listening to music for a long time, I can go months without going like, I'm going to turn on a piece of music intentionally. Now, maybe it's because my wife is like a music fanatic and turns on music all the time. But like, if it's just me driving in the car, it's like, and for the 15th time, this episode of Lions of Liberty, followed by Tom Woods and Jason Stapleton, and like no music. But now also, as Jacob knows, like we both drove Ford Fiestas, and then like my radio died 4 years ago, and I've just been using a portable speaker in my cell phone. So it's like podcasts are easier. Like it just comes through better. But like, you know, like I listen to a lot of kids songs these days and I get it. But like, if you didn't have to raise your kids technically, like, cause you had a wife that had to do it. Like I totally get like that standpoint. And this is one of the things that I think people get wrong about Trump a lot is when he was at The Apprentice, and like, especially the celebrity style one, he knew that those people were going to sell him out every minute that he did something. So he puts off this weird front, because there are a lot of people who've like met him in like this weird passing where like you have no like status, and he's a pretty jovial guy. Right. But the people who have to be around him for a long time, and especially people like Penn Jillette who have a platform, it's like, no, you're going to get this weird guy. Well, like, how can you destroy me?
I have no doubt he creates a character for himself based on what situation he's in at every moment.
Yeah, and to be fair, like Penn
4D chess,
like
72 D underwater basket weaving.
Yeah. But like Penn did say he found him as like a fascinating person, because I guess like Eric or Trump Jr. or whatever pulled him aside at some point and was like, "You're the only one here who like is polite or interesting or whatever to my dad." And he was like, "I find your dad fascinating. He's an amazing person. He's just I think weird that this type of human exists."
Like I think Penn Jillette is like one of those like just missed opportunities. Like if he had somehow any desire to like study psychology or anything where it's observing humans, like he is so amazingly good at observing a person and picking up stuff on them so quickly that like I feel like we would have probably like advanced the field of psychology super far, because he would have just been like the new Sigmund Freud had he not been like, I'm just going to be homeless, like voluntarily, and be a magician on the street.
He's one guy that I wish would get more involved in the political end of libertarianism. Now that I'm more involved in that end of things, just because, and he says a lot of things that I'm like, I don't know, man, I don't agree with that. But I that stuff aside, I think he could be a really amazing voice, not just because he's well known, has a platform. He's extremely intelligent and a very good communicator. I mean, these are the kinds of people that the Libertarian Party needs to be attracting. It needs to we need to create a place that they want to come. These people aren't just going to come run in the party just because it says Libertarian. It needs to become a place that we need people like that, and people like that want to be there. I don't have the answers of how to create that environment, but I mean, those are the kinds of voices that we need to be communicating to the masses. They're the kinds of people that can reach different sorts of people and bring them in, and sort of the Bob Barr method. I don't care how you got here. Now that you're here, now we can work on you. Send them over to Lions of Liberty. Send them over to Tasting Anarchy. Send them over to the people that can really, break things down.
And this is where like I really want to get like, because Jacob Hornberger he's not far from where I am. I want to go over to him and be like, look, please keep running. I love everything you're doing. You're doing it all right. But I need you to run again in 4 years after there's no coronavirus, because like this is what we're missing, is the chance to have rallies around him where because he's been traveling, he's been doing it all on his own money. Like, at least for me, like I know there are plenty of people who are in the party and like, are great and stuff like that. But like he is that epitome of 30 years of the same message. Like, amazing communicator, is constantly doing.
You're not going to go back and find some email or some article where he said something totally off the rails.
And like
consistent.
Like you can't like even like those weird articles like supposedly like from Ron Paul, like where it's like, oh, like kind of looks like racism, and you're like, no, like he doesn't even have that. Like people have tried for years to find this on him, and he's written every day. It's like you had every opportunity for 30 years to call him out, and you can't.
Yeah.
And having that person like step up and say, yeah, I want to do it I'm saying that like it's the worst time to be running because like, oh, we've got to support Trump against like crazy Joe Biden. I mean, like, literally just the fact that, like, we can't go out and, like, put out signs that say Hornberger and, like, you know, have just kind of putting out that grassroots campaign and stuff like that. And one of the other things that, like, the last time I looked, and I haven't looked in about a month, like, I've wanted to order a Jacob Hornberger shirt since January. And I've been like, do I have to create them and start selling them as, like, and then, like, donate to the campaign, the profits? Like, what's going on here? Like, how do I get a shirt?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's got them. I don't know for sure. I think he's
last I looked, they didn't have them.
Okay. Well, I mean, just FYI, Mason, you and I contribute $10 a month to him from Tasting Anarchy. So
yeah, but that's the thing that drives me nuts is, like, you know, the one opportunity where we really have this, like, you got batshit insane Joe Biden, you've got batshit insane Trump, and then there's Jacob Hornberger, who's like, hi, I'm not a lunatic.
Right.
I have cogent points. I know where Aleppo is. I can actually point it out on the map, and none of the two other people running can. I can also point out Tripoli. I could point out, like, all the point, you know, like, he probably name every capital in the world, and it's like, he could do all those things. Plus, he's jovial, kind, and is, like, a good communicator. It's like, no.
Well, I mean, but, you know, to be fair, is Jacob Hornberger is not the Libertarian nominee, and he may be, and I support him and I like him a lot. But there, you know, I think actually pretty much everybody who's running right now, I'd probably be satisfied with in one way.
Agreed,
or another.
And that's the thing is, I agree. But, like, having the chance to have 4 or 5 amazingly good candidates vying for the possibility of being the nominee, and then supporting each other when they're not,
right?
Like, not like the Democrats where it's like more crazier person followed by more crazier person. It's not like we're sitting there going, like, it's Vernon Supreme or Jacob Hornberger. Like,
I would be happy with Vermin Supreme, honestly.
Yeah, I would take Vermin Supreme. I'd had fun with it, you know?
Yeah.
And here's the thing is, like, I would too. But we have this opportunity with a guy who has dedicated his life and spent his platform. It's not like he's a billionaire going, like, I love the Libertarian Party and I'm going to make this happen.
Right.
This is a guy who has spent his life not enriching himself, like, masterfully. Like, he's, you know, dedicated his life to doing this. He's spending his own money to do it, to get the chance to represent the party that he helped in, you know, 30 years ago. Like, he's done all this stuff, and it's like, yes, even if he isn't the nominee, that's fine. If somebody else wins, but it's a fair fight, it's not like this railroading thing, it's not this infighting nonsense. It's literally like somebody going up there and it's like, no, I want Hornberger for VP, and I only say charismatically speaking. Like somebody like Larry Sharpe, like, other than that Joe Rogan podcast, he is
which he even admits he totally whiffed that.
Correct.
I thought he did too, but.
Yeah, like, he's so charismatic. He's so articulate. It's like there's this guy, Pavel Tatsulin, who's the guy who brought kettlebells to the United States. He was on Joe Rogan, and it was like one of the worst Joe Rogan interviews that I've heard. It's like Joe was, like, fangirling on this guy, and this guy was just like, I'm not ready for it. And that's kind of what happened with Larry Sharpe. It's like, no, like, you know how to handle Joe Rogan. You've handled these people before. You have the opportunity to do it. He didn't do it. That's fine. But, like, you know, for me, it's like, we have this opportunity. I just want to go to, like, Hornberger. It's like, look, man, they're literally threatening us with guns. Otherwise, I'm out there with your rallies every weekend. Like, that's the thing that's stopping me. And not that, like, there aren't good people running. It's just like, we have one of the best that we can willing to spend the time to do it now. Like, do we get that again?
Hey there, Liberty Kitties. Time to take a quick time out to tell you about one of our long-time supporters. His name is Tyler Colford, and he goes by the pseudonym Crypto Man. That's his rapping name. That's right. He is a rapper as well. He does some awesome stuff, and he recently produced a track called Free Ross. And the Ross in question is, of course, Ross Ulbricht, the creator of the Silk Road Marketplace, who was sentenced to 2 life sentences for creating that marketplace. Yes, it was a black market indeed of all sorts of things, including drugs, consensual transactions, which libertarians are completely in favor of. There were no victims and there were no crimes as far as we're concerned. So please do check out the track Free Ross. It was just released on Friday, March 27th, the 35th birthday of Ross Ulbricht. And 100% of the proceeds will go to the Free Ross Foundation, which is helping to free Ross and bring more awareness to his situation. Do check out the links. I will put them all over at lionsofliberty.com/freeross for ease of use. You can also pre-order it on Google Play. Again, 100% of the proceeds of this track will be going to help Free Ross.
Still wonder why there's an overpopulation in the prison system, persecuting crimes when there is no victim. Parents doing time, separating children, perpetuating crime to a future generation.
And coronavirus is really messing up libertarian plans in many ways. I mean, besides just the fact
Chillderburg. No, sorry.
Convention, and yeah, we got to talk about Chillderburg before we roll out here, because I know Jake. At least Jake, I know you've been a huge fan of planning that locally.
Pretty much, I run all of Chillderburg.
Yes.
So
by huge part, I mean doing all the work.
other than the nonsense that I throw at him.
I think Carr tweets something once in a while. But.
Yeah, which is great, which is awesome. Like Carr. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about Chillderburg a little bit because I want everybody to know that as of right now, I don't know what the future brings. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. If you think that this is,
we're conspiracy theorists.
I love
Mike
that
Morales
phrase.
has defined it. We are.
Yeah, that's. I always say I'm not a conspiracy theorist right before I lay out a huge conspiracy. So let's hear
okay.
it.
So basically, I think most of this Corona stuff is bullshit. So, but
like, do you think it doesn't exist bullshit or is overhyped bullshit?
No, I mean it exists. It's okay. But it's. I think that they clearly seized on the opportunity to crash the market. As a way to make sure that they could control the recession, because I think that they were getting to a point where they were like, oh man, this is like, and by they, I mean like the powers that be or whatever. But like when you look at the numbers on this, and granted, there's not really very good reliable numbers, but when you look at the numbers,
that's the biggest thing. No one knows here. No one knows.
Yeah,
exactly.
Anything.
Exactly.
Every week we know something new, but no one really knows.
But we don't. But even
what it's
we
doing
don't know
and who it's
something
hurting.
new. Because it's like. It's like the GDP figures revised down for the third week in a row.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. They come out. They come out with the GDP figures, and then they revise it and revise it and revise it. And then the other thing too is that like they keep coming out with like this test with the different testing, and the issue with that is that the more people you test, the more positive cases you'll have. Right. So. And people have been talking about this is that like actually I think Car Campit on Twitter at Car Campit has been tweeting this a lot, is that if you don't know what the denominator is, then it doesn't make any sense.
Irrelevant.
Yeah, so like
you're dividing by two.
Yeah, like for example, if I think that Car, or maybe it was Rollo or somebody who brought up this one, but he's like, if I surveyed my mom and asked her like who's the most handsome young man in the world, and in a survey of one, my mother, I'm the most handsome young man on the world. So like, what's the survey? Like, and so when you're saying that like, this is the number of people who have Corona or whatever, we don't know how many people have been tested. We don't know what it is. And then there's information coming out of places like Iceland, where like Iceland has actually got extremely good testing. And they're saying that 70% of people who test positive for Corona, it's going to be one of these 20 varieties of COVID-19, and 70% are going to have no symptoms at all. 25% will have symptoms, but of those 25%, about 90% of those, so like 25 or 20% or whatever of the remaining 25% will have minor symptoms that are like related to the flu, and then 5% will have serious symptoms that turn into like
Joe Biden.
Yeah, Joe Biden. Yeah, right.
Which makes you think how many people have already had it or have had it that didn't think twice about it. I mean, I don't really get a flu, but if I get really sick or I'm coughing, what do? I go to bed for a week and I'm fine. I never even consider going to a doctor. I mean, I never would unless it got so bad that I thought I was going to die or something.
I had the flu for the first time last year, and I'm betting.
Or did you have Corona?
Jacob and I were talking about this last week on our show, where I honestly think that if they show that it was in the United States in 2019 and in January, I had it. Cause like, I've never had the chills. And then like we like our water heater went out. We bought a tankless because we had the flu, because we were just like, we can't get warm. We're literally in sweats, in multiple shirts, like my wife and I, and like, it was like a week apart. And the funny thing is our daughter, who had just started daycare, got just sick, but not we were so sick. If she had gotten what we had, she would have had to go into the hospital.
It does seem to affect children, at least in the effects of it, in a much more mild way.
Like not at all, really. And that's the thing that we're seeing is like it's just like we don't know. And then like Jacob, we know somebody who's in the Virginia medical system who's like, the test is 60% effective.
Yeah, well, that's true.
It's not
so
a very useful test at all.
Yeah.
So I do know. Yeah, I know somebody who's in it, and he was telling me
at a high level too.
Yeah, and he was like, we don't test very many people. If you come in, you have flu symptoms, we just assume it's corona and then send you home. And
to die because you're
not to, well, I mean,
send you home with a bottle of LSD water and tell you,
oh my God,
just watch some movies for a couple of days, all right?
Yeah. Well, and he was saying, he's like, look, as much as I would like to be an expert on this, because I called him because I was like, I don't know what's going on exactly. And to me, like when I go around Texas here, it's like it seems normal. Like I was like, it's weird to like walk outside. It's 85 degrees out. Birds are chirping. The dogs are out there playing. Everything seems fine. It's sunny. I'm swimming in the pool, all that kind of stuff. And supposedly the world's coming to an end.
Yeah, it's the strangest. It's the most normal feeling zombie apocalypse I could ever imagine. Yeah. There's nobody puking in the street. There's nobody eating each other's brains. I mean,
but that's what like 2000, like the when the market fell out in 2008. That's what it felt like. You went outside and it's like it's a crisp fall day. It's sunny. Like I was in college, so like clearly it's isolated, but like the stock market's falling apart. It's like who gives a shit? Like Boeing took a beating. Okay, maybe they won't bomb so many brown people now. Like who cares?
So here's also kind of a funny anecdote or whatever. Is I messaged. I'm in like a libertarian group chat for people who are Chillderburg adjacent, I guess. And I messaged them and I was saying, is it possible that like I don't care because I don't know anybody who has it yet? And then he's my sister's boyfriend who is the dad of her daughter, so I call him my baby daddy-in-law. And so my baby daddy-in-law's brother-in-law, his grandmother got corona and supposedly died. Very sad. I don't know that or whatever. But I'm like, if I have to trace this by like 10 degrees of separation,
you can't even Kevin Bacon it? Yeah.
Exactly. Like I'm like, how could this possibly be serious then? If like this is how I'm tracing it, is that somebody who is the dad of my niece, his brother-in-law's grandmother had it and is dead, but she's also like 90.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
It's like, look, if you don't live in Lombardy, you don't live in Wuhan, you don't live in New York City, you're going to probably be okay. Like, I mean, Marc's in like hobo capital of the world, and like Skid Row isn't dead, but like Rikers Island is dead. So like, let's just make sure Michael Malice doesn't get arrested and we'll be all okay. Like,
right. It's like, it's very weird. But
as long as I don't go to jail, I'm feeling pretty good about my survival.
Yeah, like I had a cousin who posted like, oh, like happy birthday, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and like somebody lock her up so she doesn't get it. And I'm like, why don't you lock her up in Rikers Island and let's see if she makes it. And then somebody fly Michael Malice to Tom Wood's house so he's not in New York City anymore. He can go to the gym. Like that guy's losing his mind. But yeah, so like Chillderburg, because I always do the plugging for Chillderburg. Right now, tentatively, 23rd through the 26th in Austin, Texas. Right now, we are intending to happen. But, if the jackbooted authorities try to kick us out of the park, which we basically decided to, and by we, I mean Jacob, has decided to stop trying to negotiate with the city to actually pay them money to do anything intelligent. We're going to just be there having fun doing stuff. We've talked about privately kidnapping Marc, so that way he can have fun, stop recording all this good content, come make bad content with Tasting Anarchy, Friends Against Government, Rollo and Slappy Show, Peaceful Treason, like probably Freeman.
Friends Against the Government. Friends Against Government will be there.
Here's the question, because the LNC is up in the air right now.
Yeah.
Because I think for multiple reasons, just the actual concern of the virus. Also because they don't know if the city of Austin will allow it to happen either.
Right.
So the question is, it sounds like I've already heard the answer, but you guys are doing Chillderburg no matter what.
Right. The thing is that Chillderburg is independent of the LNC anyways.
Of course, right.
I moved the date, and it was supposed to be the first week of June. That's what is probably going to be going forward. I moved it a week early because
Just try to get some overlap and
yeah, to get a little overlap, give people a break.
We knew you were coming to Austin.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then,
just for me specifically, really.
Well, no, like that. I mean, that's a big thing for us too. Is like there are people, like as you said at the beginning of the show, like in the meat space, the whole point of Chillderburg is to meet each other.
Yeah. Exactly.
We can't, like, we both lived in Virginia. We didn't go to Porcupine Fest. We had
no reason for a virtual Chillderburg. We already do that on our
exactly.
podcast.
Yeah. Like we had plenty of people went to Pork Fest, like, and we did a 1-day event, and it was like amazing. And that's what we missed from the like meetups that we met each other through. So it's kind of like, no, we got an opportunity where all of these people are coming to one city, and we can be there too. Like, the chance to meet you guys, like the chance to
and this
meet
kind
Jason,
of that
like
same point is that I think, and to that point too is I think that one of the things, because most libertarians, we kind of exist online a lot, and I think that it's really important for people to form communities. So like for example, locally here there was there's a libertarian couple that one of the couple had surgery, and so the local libertarian group was able to get together and do like what I remember when I was a kid from church, is that if somebody has surgery or something like that, you send them food, right? Mm-hmm. It's very helpful, and because of the breakdown, I think, and the people say that libertarians like are atomized or whatever. Is that the right word? Atomized?
Sure.
I think that's like it's the point across, but it's not the word that one would use.
Right. Well, like everybody's like, oh, well, they'll be free into themselves or whatever. And like, if you can't, if you can't grow your own food, then like screw you or whatever. That's not really what libertarians believe. They just believe in making voluntary communities. So like we had somebody who was nearby here in the DFW area. They said this is going on, and fortunately we were able to go ahead and order them some food, make sure that they were okay, and get them some stuff together. And so that helps a lot. You may know people online, you may give to a GoFundMe or that kind of thing, but it also helps to just like be able to meet people in person. So that was kind of my goal with Chillderburg. When Carr mentioned it, when I still live in Virginia, actually, and I just started following Carr, the very first tweet,
you were moving to Texas.
I did. Yeah. So I was looking for Texas Libertarians, and Carr had tweeted, Bilderberg is happening. I think I'm going to protest it this year by hanging out in my apartment by myself and drinking and calling it Chillderburg. And like that clicked with me. I was like, whoa, Chillderburg. That's a great name. And it's a good up.
I want to just for the few that might not be enlightened out there. Can you tell people where the name, like what the Chillderburg, what that is?
So the Bilderberg, supposedly, and actually Adam Kokesh, when he's on your show, he actually mentioned it to John Odermatt, I think, and is when he was talking about like his kind of evolution into running for president or whatever. So Bilderberg is this group of basically the world's most powerful power brokers, and it's not even a secret.
Not a conspiracy. It's a real thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Happens.
But anytime I bring it up with like regular normies or whatever, they're like, "Oh, whatever, that's a big conspiracy." I'm like, "It's not even hidden."
The president
they publish articles about it, like the mainstream news.
The president banned federal workers from going to it.
Yeah, it's the most bizarre thing. It's like the most bizarre open conspiracy there is. But basically, it's these people. They get together. I think it was founded originally for people who are very powerful to start like to discuss policy on a global scale. And so they invite mostly like very powerful CEOs, political figures, that sort of stuff. And those people go there, and it's supposed to be like no cameras or anything like that. And they're supposed to be able to discuss basically how they're going to rule us, the plebes. And, it's protested every year by Alex Jones and actually Kokesh was there, but like regular people too. Like this is not like, these are not elected people typically. And every single president prior to Trump, went to this prior to being elected. So like, it's one of those weird things where like, there's a lot of very bizarre stuff going on when it comes to the Bilderbergs. But anyways, the Bilderbergs, they've decided that they're going to run our lives for us, supposedly. And so we kind of decided, well, we'll just start our own thing, Chillderburg, which is we'll run our lives the way that we want to run our lives. And for a couple of days, we'll just camp out, grill out, drink a lot of beers, drink wine. I'm going to have a wine tasting at Chillderburg Dose. We had
the wine van last year.
Yeah, we had a wine tour last year in Texas Hill Country. We drank beers, we shared food, we swam in the lake. This year we'll swim in the river. It's just kind of a chill event for you to kind of build your in-person network of libertarians, so that if you do need help, if you do need advice,
guests for your show, if you need advice, if you need all these different things, like we've got a very rich community, but it is very diverse, and it's very not diverse. Geographically, I guess diverse. Yeah.
So people from a lot of different places, and it's just a good idea. It's a good opportunity for us to kind of coalesce in one area, build some personal relationships, and once you meet people, once you hang out with them and like actually see them in person, that kind of solidifies a friendship. And so
yeah, it's a huge thing. I mean, just going 2018 anyway. We went to Porkfest for the first time and the LNC for the first time, and that was the first time I met so many people that I'd only known as maybe fans of the show or a retweet here and there, and just meeting people in real life and talking to them, you really start to realize like we really are building a community here, like a real one, not just an internet one. And when we get off the internet and meet each other in real life and become actual friends, not just internet friends, I mean, it really does change so many things about the way you feel about what you're doing. Like, I felt I felt like what we're doing at Lions of Liberty is so much bigger than I had felt prior to doing those things, because having people in person tell me, oh, I really love your show. Oh, you've really helped me learn about this. Or I've actually overheard someone talking about like out of the corner of my ear, I heard someone talking about an episode that I did with Walter Block. And I'm just like, what? Why am I'm at a place overhearing someone talking about something I did without knowing I'm even listening? This is the strangest thing ever.
Do you creep up on them and be like,
I've been here the whole time.
Yeah, it's really wild. Like when we did Chillderburg, Chillderburg 1, I thought maybe 10, 15 people would show up. I planned for 50 just in case. But people showed up from North Dakota, from Pennsylvania, Mason, Virginia.
Like Rolo flew, I flew, but a guy drove from North Dakota. We had a guy.
A guy drove from Chicago.
A guy was gonna come from like Sweden, and wasn't able to make it, and it literally was the last minute that he wasn't able to come.
Yeah, actually, Alex Utopium on Twitter. He's a cool guy. He's actually got a really good blog about urban.
I know that name from Twitter.
Stuff.
Yeah, it's funny how many names you recognize from Twitter now.
Yeah. He lives, I think, in Stockholm. I'm not exactly sure where he lives, but he's got a good blog about like brewing, and also about like finding like food growing in the city, like things that you would think are weeds but you can eat. So it's pretty interesting. He's a cool guy.
Man.
Yeah.
So Chillderburg is going to happen no matter what is the plan.
Well,
as long as we're allowed to travel at that point.
And that's the thing is like, that's what they're kind of our contingency plan is like, Texas is one of those places that you can't really shut Texas down. Like it's like California. Like you can theoretically shut it down, but like if you go up to northern, Stockton's probably still happening. Like you can't, like Stockton's a crime zone. That's where my wife's from. Like it's still happening.
Well, and where I'm from, like in California, Northern California, like nobody lives there. It's like it's so sparsely populated that like you could drive for 10 hours and not see another car
easily.
Yeah,
people don't realize how huge California is.
It's big.
And that's the thing about Texas is like Texas is even larger. So, but like that's kind of the thing is like Virginia like is not on lockdown, and like they've made it kind of very clear that like if the federal government goes on lockdown, Virginia is going on lockdown. Otherwise, Virginia is not going on lockdown. And so like if I can fly to Texas, like there's going to be Chillderburg of Jacob and me. Like, and my wife and child were going to come, and like they didn't come to the first one, but we were going to take like a trip to Texas and do that stuff. And like
we've already got it in the budget to go to Austin that week. So as far as I'm concerned, if we can't go for LNC, I'd love to still try to go for that.
Like our biggest concern with like and this I haven't talked to Jacob about this because it literally came up like today when he was sharing articles about the LNC is like you guys like planning to come out and do those different things. It's like if they move it like 2 weeks. It's like crap, I guess we're going to Los Angeles, like, or something like that, and that's kind of the classic Jacob and I thought process of like, well, when we start making a lot of money doing internet stuff, then like, you know, we're going to be like in the random Chillderburg pop-up event that happened in Los Angeles this weekend. And here's all this recording, like those sort of things. So like, if Chillderburg can't happen physically because we can't go out, Chillderburg will be a digital event even. But
yeah, exactly.
Right now, it's going to be at least Jacob and I doing something in Texas because I can't go a year without seeing him. So, you know, romance till the end.
It would just hurt too much.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing is too, like if it truly goes on lockdown, nobody's going to Austin or anything like that. You know, I've actually spent not to make anybody feel bad about Chillderburg. I've spent a lot of my own. It's not even a humble brag. I've spent a lot of my own money on this already. And this was my thought process with the first one as well. And my thought process with the next one is I'll make up whatever I spend in donations and t-shirt sales and that sort of stuff. So I'm not really that worried about it. But now we're at kind of like a weird crossroads where it's like, they may just shut down the park. And I don't know if Austin will refund my money. And
have they actually, maybe you can charge back.
If they shut down the park, they kind of have to.
I messaged them.
This is the government we're talking about.
Yeah. So. I was going to say, like, this is the government that won't get back to him about like noise ordinance issues where he's like, what do I have to have when there's Bass Pro tournaments coming in and they're making 130 decibels worth of noise. And I'm talking about having a small microphone so Robbie the Fire can do some stand up and then anybody else who wants to do it. Hint.
Well, sure, I'll do stand up. Oh, that wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That was hinting at you.
I have done stand up 3 times, so
I know, and there's a recording of one of your stand ups on YouTube, I think, or maybe you guys shared it on the Patreon.
It exists somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I announced this. I announced stand up, and a lot of libertarians do amateur, and they were interested in doing it. And Robbie agreed to mediate it if Robbie isn't shut down, because it seems like New York City is like the most draconian of the Corona situation. I don't know if they're going to be allowed to fly out of there.
So I guess what I'm hearing is I've got to get my wife's car. I've got to drive to New York. I've got to get Dave, his wife, and his daughter, Robbie, and Malice somehow in a car, and then get somewhere else.
Well, make it a van and pick me up on the way. It's not really on the way, but you can make it on the way.
Yeah, it'll go around or whatever. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the weird thing. But like at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised at all if like Monday things like go back to normal or something. Like, I know that the federal government is kind of saying like they're going to wait till Easter or whatever. That's a really long time for the entire country to be shut down.
I mean, in California, the governor said this current order that we're under is until April 19th. Meanwhile, the other day, the mayor of Los Angeles said expect to be locked down for 2 months.
Which is insane. It is insane. That doesn't like the amount, like even ignoring the $2 trillion plus $4 trillion plan from the government or whatever, like you just can't be locked down that long. It doesn't. It doesn't,
for both economic and sanity reasons. Like people are going to lose their minds if they're not interacting with their friends and their loved ones.
And this is what like makes me laugh, like because like I live in a place where you can drive around the corner and see up to 4 aircraft carriers in dock, like literally nuclear powered. Like they're 80. It's like being in San Diego. I actually live within a mile of like the U.S.'s ability to destroy another country, short of like, I guess, Russia. Like I live within that. And like, we're like, yeah, we're not really shutting down things. And like, California is like, that really northern place, like Pinecrest or like Jacob, we're at, and I swear,
like Truckee or
like
way up there. Yeah,
these places where like they've never even like they don't get the seasonal flu. They're so small.
Yeah. And Truckee's pretty big, but like, I mean, like where my sister lives, she lives in like Eel River or something like that, and it's like population 300 or something like that.
And I live next to the biggest town in Virginia, and it's like the biggest military population. We have people transiting from Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, like all of the hot spots the US is fighting from, they come into Norfolk, and it's like, we're not shutting down for crap. Like, and we have Governor Blackface, and he's like, yeah, I'll kill a baby at 8 months. Like, I don't care. Like, but yeah, we're not shutting down for the coronavirus, but California is like, yeah, somebody sneezed yesterday. And San Diego had Hep B last year in the water. So we're shut down completely. Like, so.
Well, I mean, my sisters are big conspiracy theorists, and they live up in Northern California. They think this is all a plan by like Gavin Newsom and those types of people to force people to urbanize so that they can get them in smart cities to monitor their movements
to
and
track
stuff.
them like
this is the full Alex Jones, conspiracy.
My sisters are unique individuals, and
I'm open to it at this point. I'm willing to believe almost anything because this stuff is crazy.
It's bizarre. It is really bizarre.
We can recreate the Lions of Liberty studio in my spare room here, Mark. Like, you can get out of California.
I'm listening.
Yeah.
Howie's not far by. I mean,
that's true.
Actually,
can I live there too?
Well, here's
I may not have work anymore for a while.
Well, here's actually, if you live within Hampton Roads or within striking distance of DC, yeah, like you could get work, like especially in video production and style
actually
stuff.
The funny thing is about all this, I actually had it wasn't an official job offer. I was reached out to about a job offer in DC just before this all got crazy.
Yeah,
and at the end of the day, they said the money would be about the same. The best they could do would be about the same money I make now. And in my mind, I was just like, I don't want to uplift my life and live further away from where I really like everything.
I was going to say,
just for the same thing, if it was way better. But now I'm like, well, California might lock my job down for the rest of the year. So
yeah, and
maybe I should call back.
Well, the funny thing is, like, here, you could technically live in a place where it would be cheaper to live and still make it to that job. Mm-hmm. Whereas where you live now, you couldn't.
That's true.
So if you're making the same money, you could make out like a bandit.
I actually do know a few people that live literally over 2 hours away from where they work.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that much.
Yeah. When our buddy Nate Classic, who's been on our show, he works remotely, but they live outside of DC, but his parents work in DC, and they're like an hour and a half away or something like that. Like it's not.
Yeah, I mean, they're farther than that. Like I have.
Are they further than that?
My cousin, who's like his dad or my uncle, who works in the Pentagon or the Coast Guard Command, wherever it is. I forget where it is now. Like his average commute, like no traffic, zombie apocalypse, it's 45 minutes.
Yeah.
His average commute is like 2 hours, and it's not even that. Like, yeah.
But, to encourage you a little bit, Mark, is like I was out in Anaheim a couple of months ago, and like every time I go back to California, I'm always like, you know what? It is kind of worth the paradise tax. Like,
I mean, even people don't understand that it kind of is. I mean, I weigh my costs and benefits every day.
Yeah,
and every day I say, well,
to be honest, like every time I go to San Diego, I'm like, I have a wife and kid. I have a wife and kid. I have a wife and kid. Like,
yeah,
San Diego. Like to be honest, it's like Jason Stapleton. In like, this is one of the things I love about Jason Stapleton. He's like, the wealth tax. So you mean to live here in paradise? I just have to earn more money? Are you fucking retarded?
Yeah. Well, and actually sort of on that same note, it's like, I love Dallas. I think Dallas is a great place to live. It is insanely hot in the summer.
Yeah. That would work for me.
Yeah. Well, it does.
It's not as bad as you think. Like having been there.
I've been there in the summer. It was as bad as I thought.
No, it's not. Well, it's not Arizona.
No, at least it's dry. At least it is like a dry heat. That I can.
It is.
I can't handle that.
So don't come live with Howie and I.
Cubas of the world that I can't handle.
Yeah. I was gonna say don't come live with Howie and I, because it is.
It's a nightmare. Yeah. Well, and that was the thing, is like even though I lived in Virginia for 10 years, like the humidity was. It was just too much. I couldn't, like, every year I was like, I just can't get used to it. Here it's like, it's 105, 107 or whatever. Not a big deal. And now actually I bought a house and the house has a pool, so I can go out and swim in the pool. I grew up in California and then granted I was in the foothills, so it doesn't get quite as hot as the valley, but like the valley is, 105,
like 100. Yeah. Like
it's like 100,
week and a half.
I mean, like Stockton, where your wife's from, or like Sacramento or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it can be all of August is like 102, And like, so what? It's 105 here in Dallas and a little bit more humid. It's like, yeah, I got a pool. Like, it's not a big deal. Yeah. But like, I guess to like get everybody's like whatever panties in a ruffle or whatever is like, maybe with climate change it'll be a little bit more warm. But we'll see. We'll see.
Only hope. Fingers crossed.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Because that just means the wine growing region in the world will just expand better.
That's true. And like we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, you get like. We can wrap it up with wine if you guys want. Sure,
I was about to tee you up for if you want to wrap up by just
I was going to say like
everything you guys do at Tasting Anarchy and anything wine related.
You got to watch out for Jacob and I because we will go on for 6 hours and
That's
just
true.
Be like, oh wait, Mark's still here and he's passed out, like he's asleep. He's still
at
recording.
Some point, I just slowly sneak out of the room and just
and then we're just like
like Homer Simpson sneaking back into the bitches.
It's
like I'll just let you guys keep going.
It's like the longest episode of Lions of Liberty was just Tasting Anarchy, just mouthing off for 4 hours.
And I do have a reputation of like taking over other podcasts because like I make notes. Like I made notes for this show. We haven't used any of them yet, but I make. All right,
let's get to the notes.
All right. Well, so there's a couple things I wanted to hit, and it's wine related, and that is in relation to coronavirus. We've got it does actually particularly hit the wine industry hard in some ways, and in other ways it's actually pretty beneficial to the wine industry. And one of the ways that it does hit the wine industry hard is that small producers, particularly in places like Texas or Virginia where Mason lives, is that small producers rely very heavily on foot traffic to the vineyard and to where they are making the wine. They have a serving room and they will let you have taste and stuff like that. And that does, they serve food and that sort of stuff. That is a huge supplement to small producers. And right now, in a lot of places, particularly Texas, a lot of those are shut down as a result of Corona, and that is a big problem. And it's a big problem because it's going to cause some that have very thin margins to have to either take out loans or possibly shut down continuously. So I have an example. This is not a wine example, but my sister lives in one of my sisters. I have 4 sisters. One of my sisters lives in Nebraska, and she works at a like kind of a brew pub. And they have been forced to shut down because the majority of their money comes in from beer sales. And because of the reduction in beer sales, they've basically not been able to make ends meet. It's only been 2 weeks of a shutdown and they've had to close. And it's unfortunate, but that's actually the reality of this type of situation. On the flip side, though, a bonus kind of the situation is places like Virginia have now allowed wine and beer delivery and wine and beer curbside pickup. They even are not. They're even allowing you to drink in your car.
What?
As long as you're eating.
In LA, they have also relaxed the rules, and you are allowed to get, since there are no restaurants that are open as restaurants.
No. They're in Virginia, 10 people. They're open.
Right.
You can have 10 people seating.
Well, so you can have 0, but you can get a to-go drink if you have a to-go order now, which kind of begs the question: why was this ever a problem? Why
exactly.
I was going to say,
that's
catastrophe. Why can't we do it last week?
I didn't think you guys were allowed to leave the house on fear of death of Gavin Newsom, like teabagging you to death.
Yeah, I don't follow. First of all, well, we are allowed to leave the house technically, but also I would not. I'm never going to be at a point where I stay in my house all day because I'll lose my mind. And if they're going to put me in jail for leaving my house at any point, then I will be the poster child for someone that went.
Can we have celebrity death match?
I'll be the one that dies on the cross.
Can we have celebrity death match like Marc Claire versus Gavin Newsom, like claymation style?
I'm in. Can we do it in real life with boxing gloves? Because I'm really in.
That's
worse than Newsom. I'm really not a big fan of our mayor Garcetti, but that's a whole different.
Garcetti, okay.
Well, if that's a racism component, we'll just let you fight Newsom.
It's because
he's got noose in his name. He's got noose in his name.
I think Newsom is Italian, so like that might be a problem too. But like we'll see. But but that's a good example though. Is that in the wine industry, we've been seeing this is relaxed shipping regulations. This has actually been coming for a long time. It's just been very slow moving. There was recently several Supreme Court cases that did particularly pertain to shipping across state lines wine, and they've been very favorable to wine producers, but it takes time for localities and state level to kind of relax those regulations. Well, here comes coronavirus, and everybody's just like, all bets are off. Everybody's allowed to basically do everything. But yeah, it does bring up the point, like, why were these regulations here in the first place? And it's very, very clear.
Who is it protecting then that it's not protecting now?
Well, for sure, we know who it was protecting when it comes to alcohol. And in alcohol, there's something called the 3-tier system. And in the 3-tier system, wineries are not, until recently, wineries were not allowed to directly sell to you, the consumer. They had to sell to a distributor, and the distributor could then sell to you. And so these have been relaxing over the last several years. I think there was a Supreme Court case in like 2005 or something like that that was allowing wineries to directly sell. Breweries have been trying to get something similar where they're allowed to directly sell and ship. But the 3-tier system is something that was put in place after Prohibition. It's been stuck with us for ever. And well, since Prohibition. And it is basically, you have to have this middleman, and these people clean up. Like in some states there's one. And
or like in Hampton Roads, there was one forever.
Right. Yeah. So you have these distributors, and they ship. They are in total control of distribution, and so it's very hard to get into those markets. You can't get a lot of the specialty items that exist across the country. And since coronavirus happened, is that a lot of those regulations are being relaxed. Now people are allowed to do direct shipment. Restaurants are allowed to sell directly to consumers and stuff like that, where the restaurants still do have to consume it or purchase it from the distributors. But it is something that's kind of in the making. And I think that this is a good opportunity for libertarians to capitalize on this, is to say, look, these regulations were not necessary in a crisis. Why were they necessary then in peacetime, or whatever we call like non-virus time, So that I think is a good example. This is something that we do have looked forward to, is that hopefully the government's going to get out of a lot of these regulations here locally. That's what
we can hope the most for, that people see that these sort of libertarian things that are happening in many places around the country, the relaxing of regulations for this emergency reason, the same reasons that they're relaxing them now apply in the quote unquote non-emergency times, whether it's medical related, whether it's just taking drinks to go.
Yeah, and that's a good example. Nick Gillespie had a really good article about this on Reason recently, where a lot of people on Twitter and Facebook and that sort of stuff have been like, "Haha, we've defeated libertarians because we need the force of the state to deal with this." And it's like,
I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And Nick Gillespie had this point where he's like, "What are you talking about? Every single thing that has been good has been a libertarian policy position for years."
Yeah. And everything bad has been because the government curtailed something, whether it be testing or whether it be delivering drinks to people.
Exactly. And I think that's a very fair point. And to tie this back into Tasting Anarchy, is what we can hope for is something that most people consume every day, or at least once a week. Even if you're like Catholic or something, and you don't drink, you do consume communion, and whose finger is in your communion wine is the government. And so, the tagline for Tasting Anarchy is "Find out how much government is in your drink." There's a shit ton of government in your drink.
It's a higher percentage than the alcohol. I think in most cases.
Exactly. And where Mason lives, the ABC is in charge of liquor sales. So you're right. It is the higher percentage of alcohol, the more government is involved. And that's something that we try to shed a light on, is that alcohol is something that humanity in general has in common. Is, people, no matter what the laws are, people want to get fucked up for whatever reason. And whether it be alcohol or marijuana or, heroin
steroids.
Or LSD, steroids. Yeah, exactly. Like whatever people want. Exactly. Yeah. Whatever people want, the government is going to try to stop that. But people are always going to find a way around that. And we learned that in Prohibition. And we're learning that again now. This is a really great example that's going to add to our arsenal of examples for people who are not libertarians, is that the regulation on alcohol and other items doesn't work. People, when you are in an emergency and you're releasing these regulations and it helps,
it's kind of an admission that these were bad. I mean, it's an admission that they do harm, or else why would you change it?
Exactly. So if they were so good, we could wait 2.5 years.
If they're so great, we should have more during this crisis time, right? Shouldn't we have more regulations because we're in a really bad time?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's it. That's a really good point. And we're seeing that is not the case. And I hope that kind of translates a little bit. Like my more statist relatives, I've been keeping contact with because I'm at home all day long. And I've been
bringing blowing me up at work.
As well, yeah, that's true. I just been sending messages because you're actually
Mason, I miss you. Are you coming? You're coming to Dallas, right? You're coming, right? You're coming to Chillderburg.
Yeah.
All right, Josh. Yeah, we all got BFFs. It's okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
And that's the funny thing is like, you know, Jacob and I have like this, like, we both have a unique connection to California. Like half my dad's family still lives in California. Like I have plenty of cousins in California. My wife's family's from California. And now I have this weird central point in Texas. It's like, I just go to Texas and then go to California and hang out with everybody.
Yeah.
And then like,
Meanwhile, I have zero connection to California, but I lived here for 20 years.
yeah.
No
And that's
family. No, I mean, obviously I have friends that live here now, but.
Well, that's what makes me laugh is like, now
Sure.
it's like, okay, I could go to San Diego. I could drive through LA, want to kill myself, stop by, see Marc, and then go all the way up to Stockton and then still want to kill myself because Stockton is a shithole, but
It's not
see
gonna
my
lift
family.
your spirits. too
Yeah.
I mean, to be 100% honest, Mason says he wants to kill himself. I love every time I go to LA, and I don't love the city because I'm never in the city part of it, but like I'm there and I'm like, this is the warm, dusty atmosphere that I love, and because it reminds me of where I grew up.
Well, to be fair, like I've never been to LA, and
Okay.
if I was going with somebody who like, there's a Netflix show.
It sounds
called
like you
Somebody
guys are
Feed-
laying the ground for something here. I think
Yeah.
we might be brewing a little Chillderburg
Exactly.
LA action.
Exactly. And there's a guy who somebody feed Phil Netflix. It's the guy who created Everybody Loves Raymond. He lives in LA and he does an episode about LA and they go to all these amazing eateries. And I'm like,
Oh, there's so many amazing places to eat. Back
Exactly.
when we were allowed to eat outside at places.
yeah. And that's the thing
old
that kills
days.
me about like my wife, because she's from California, doesn't like the big cities because she's from Stockton, which is not a very big city compared to California standards. Virginia standards is a very large city. But like, I'm like, but there are so many places to eat in Los Angeles. There are so many cool people.
You
in
could
Los
eat somewhere
Angeles.
amazing every day, literally every day, and
Yeah,
for
and
your whole
they're in
year,
the-
and you would not need to double up at all. You
And
would
they're
want
in a
to
shop-
because you'd find a few you love
Yeah.
so much, but
And
you could
they're
easily
in a
not.
shopping center, like, and that's the amazing thing about the free market, like how much it persists, even in
right.
like
Even
ground
the most
zero
statist
for
places
like
we can
the
imagine.
most statist place you can be. Like, I think the only having
in
not
many
li-
ways, the free market is the only thing that allows the statism to continue because
That's true.
they
Correct.
need to suck on what we produce. And without us,
Exactly.
they can't exist either.
And that's the thing is like there are two places where like if you say this most statist place in the United States, New York City, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Both of them have such amazing and vibrant food scenes, and it's like,
Probably the
and
two
those
best
people are
besides San
generally
Francisco in the
like
country.
super
Yeah.
like statist. It's like,
Well, I mean,
It's like-
that's sort of, you know, with the food scenes or what, like technically Dallas has more 5-star restaurants per capita than any other city in the country. But
Yeah.
it's very specific types of food, but it's a lot of Mexican food. And
oh, fantastic food.
it is very good food. But like, I mean, like that you know, we always talk about this, Mason, is that like a lot of my favorite places to go is like Seattle. I love
Mhm.
San Francisco. I love San Francisco, even though it's full of like homeless people.
San Francisco is like one of the greatest
Yeah.
cities.
It,
Like,
it yeah,
for
and
a
you know,
city.
Yeah, if you can
Yeah.
put your politics aside and look away from a few things,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
incredible.
Yeah.
when there's a lot of places that are like that, where like it is so hard. You know, Mason and I talked about this on our show several times. Is it is really hard for me to put my politics aside and watch TV or movies.
Yeah.
Oh
But,
yeah.
With
like-
food, I can do it easy.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. With food and like
No
travel
problem.
and like cities and stuff like that.
Exactly.
It's like San Francisco, beautiful. Seattle, as long as it's above, you know, nightfall when all the, like the hordes of homeless people move into the city, like the like that's great. Even Dallas is a lot more liberal than it used to be. I'm sure. I've only been here about 2 years, but like I talk to people who've been here for 10 or 15 years, and they're like, all of California is moving here, and it's turning into, you know, that. And it's like people from the Bay Area. I know like 5 or 10 people here from the Bay Area. I actually know a very great libertarian here who's from the Bay Area, and he was like, I couldn't stand the Bay Area anymore. I had to move to
Yeah.
DFW.
I don't know if it's accurate, but I don't like the argument that people say, oh, all the blue people from California are coming to Texas and this and that. And maybe it's true, but to me, the people
It's
that are
all the-
moving are probably people that are moving for the reasons we might sort of agree with them on. So they might
Yeah,
be
well,
the
they're-
best people you want
it's
to come
the-
in.
It's the no. The problem is the purple people. It's the people who supported Obamacare not thinking that it was destroying the economy,
Right.
but go like, yeah, you should be able to start a business as a African-American hair braider without any regulation. Like there shouldn't be weird
And
Virginia
they're
laws
missing the
saying,
disconnect.
yeah, they're missing the disconnect. So you're getting a blue state because you're dumping a bunch of purple in. The diehards who like my cousin who's a huge Bernie supporter, I love him to death. Like he was going to come out and visit us. Like he was supposed to be landing at midnight tonight. And like I literally have tomorrow off because my cousin was supposed to come in. Like he's a huge Bernie supporter and like is like so blue it's like I guess like royal blue. Like I mean like, you know, he's this huge Bernie guy.
Yeah.
But like he's never going to leave California.
But you know what?
Like, kind of be like literally his house could be on fire and he's like, I'm not leaving. And like, cause for Marc, do you know Swarthmore?
I do not.
So it was the first private college to like break $100,000 per year. So it's a town, it's like 45 minutes out of like Philadelphia or so, like, and that's where his dad taught for like most of his life. He went to Caltech and he's never been back to the East Coast since. His dad's from California. They spent every year in Pinecrest in California, like up in the mountains. Like he's as blue as they come. And it's like, yeah, he's not leaving California. It's the purple guys who are leaving. It's the moderate Democrats that were leaving. And then they're leaving in such masses. And then they go vote for like, but yeah, California should have a healthcare system like California. That's
they're
not
still going to click the
ruined
same box, but they might have slightly libertarian views on the ground.
But they're voting
for affect the national.
But they're voting for Beto.
Right.
And it's like,
right. Yeah. And
this lunatic who's like a freaking like socialist nightmare.
He's truly a lunatic.
Yeah. Well, you know, to kind of like put like I try to like make things hopeful and on a bright side. Well, the thing is it's one thing that like the people who are true blue or, you know, or even true red or crimson or whatever it is for the Republicans is that we're at a point in America where I truly think that people are realizing that they can't get along and that the best option is to split up. And I think that is a really great opportunity for libertarians.
It's the Adam Kokesh option.
It is. I think it is the Adam Kokesh option. And I think it's
Kokesh
true.
Button. Yeah.
And so like my cousin and I, he grew up in LA, lives in Seattle currently. And he is I would like say even more hardcore Bernie than Bernie almost. Like he is like a nut. But I talk to him on a regular basis and he and I don't agree on very much at all. But the one thing that we agree on is that he and I cannot be ruled by the same person.
See, and that's a great place to get someone to. I mean, especially someone who would never agree with you on the general philosophy.
Right.
That is maybe the best hope we have in some ways is to just get people to agree to localize, and then we can do our own thing and move easily. If it's
and he does he agrees with localization. Like there's a local flair. Like I say Seattle, but when I say Seattle, I actually mean Vashon, and Vashon is an island, a rural island off the coast of Seattle. Like Vashon has a flavor. And I don't want the flavor to be interrupted. Like it is a flavor of like washed up hippies from the 1960s and 70s who are awesome.
It's basically the current libertarian. They never went through that communist 60s stage.
Yeah.
It's just like libertarians who were like, no. I want you to smoke weed, screw as many hookers as you want, but I'm not letting you take my property.
Basically. And so just to kind of put this in perspective. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a Quaker. So when I was out on Vashon last time for family camp, the family camp is Baptist, but I'm a Quaker. So I wanted to go to a Quaker meeting on the island. And it was one of the greatest like hippie gatherings I had ever been to in my life. There's a bunch of people with like weird dreads, but then like also like yuppie, like they were yuppies, but they were like yuppies who had aged out of it. Like, so they were actually yuppies in the 80s, but now they're like 70 and, or however old yuppies would be at this point. But, and like, it was in a tiny house with like solar panels and like a garden and all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't like, so in a Quaker meeting, you sit in a circle and, you know, and that's like when you sit in a circle, you're silent and you like talk to God that way. But, this was like, the circle didn't fit because it was a tiny house. So it was like on like one side and like was like oblong and like came around to the other side. But like part of Quaker meeting is that like when the spirit touches you, you're allowed to like say what God is telling you. And so like they're like standing up and like saying these like wackadoo things. And I was like, this is why I want to be here. It's so great. Like they're so nuts, but they're also the nicest people. They want to go out. They're helping out like at soup kitchen. Like they're not like going like, hey, this is what we should do or whatever. They're physically going and helping out at the soup kitchen.
They're the people who get arrested week after week, giving bread out to the homeless.
Exactly.
And then say
they're the real deal.
And then they're the people who say the Pope is the Antichrist as they're being dragged off. But like they've still fed 45 people before anybody realized what they were doing, because they're not out there going like, I'm feeding the homeless, call the cops. They're just going
exactly.
like, hey,
they're
are you down on your luck? Can I help you? I have a sandwich and I'd like you to have it. And here's a clean bottle of water and here's a piece of fruit. And they're like, they get to 45 people and then it's suddenly some busybody who calls on them. And it's not like, your cousin who I really, really want to meet, where it's like,
yeah, he's a cool dude.
Yeah. Like they're Jack, like he's like Antifa without being Antifa, where it's like, he's helping out, but he's shouting about it the entire time.
Yeah. Well, imagine like a video game version of Vagabond Seth. That's my cousin. Yeah, he's great.
Who's another one of our classic people we reference, who literally just went, yeah, the world doesn't work for me. I'm literally just going to go hike the Appalachian Trail and I'm never coming back to society.
Yeah.
Somehow we like, Jacob and I, who like for a while there were like super statist, but like super statist libertarians, where it's like, we're still going to elect the next president. And this guy who's like, yeah, I was doing a bunch of LSD walking down the railroad tracks last night. And I had this epiphany. I don't believe in anything other than God.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. And then he just like dipped out. I mean, like the thing is like, Mason and I'm the type of person who like jumps full like 2 feet into things once I learn about it. So like
that's why Chillderburg exists.
Exactly. That's why Chillderburg exists. That's why like I made enough DMT for like 3 years in like one go, and like did DMT for like a month every day. And then like
as someone who may or may not have done it for 5 minutes, a month seems like a lot.
Well, I mean, like every day for a month.
Well, but this is the funny thing about this is the funny thing about us.
From what I've read, it's pretty intense.
Well, this is the funny thing about like us is like Jacob's like, okay, I've done it and I've blasted off and I can't get like I've gone away, and I'm like, there wasn't enough. I need more of it. It's not working. Like I didn't have this experience, so I'm like, how do I sit on my porch and just do a bunch of this?
I feel like we're getting into the realm of major potential bonus content.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, and that's.
If you want to go to DMT for bonus content, because I've got DMT experiences for years.
Oh yeah, we've got some like we've got two at least. The one where Jacob stopped, and the one where I was like, oh wait, this is all just me pretending it's happening. And then trying to chase it for the rest of the time. Because
why don't we wind down the main show?
Yeah.
Take a little break for a second, and then I'll come back to you. I've got dinner brewing in the other room, so let's see. Maybe we could do it.
Yeah. Let me run and get another drink real quick, and we can do that.
I do want to give you guys a chance to officially sign off in a sense of this main body of the show.
We give everybody sign off.
Give everybody the roundup, just the roundabout of everything you guys everywhere they can find Tasting Anarchy and Chillderburg info and all those, all those checking the box things.
Yeah. So you can find us on pretty much every podcaster on Tasting Anarchy. You can follow us on Twitter, which is mainly Jacob, Tasting Anarchy on Twitter. You can follow our Libertarian event in the South, as we like to say it, on Chillderburg on Twitter, chillderburg.com, tastinganarchy.com. You can send us an email at tastinganarchy@gmail.com. And basically, if you hashtag or go on Reddit and Chillderburg or Tasting Anarchy, will find you. So
that's right. That was an incredible summary, my friends. So, gentlemen, keep up the great work. Keep on roaring. And if you're interested in hearing more, perhaps tune into our Patreon, patreon.com/LionsLiberty for a little bit more.
Which Mason and I are Patreons on that. So the content is worth it.
All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jake and Mason from Tasting Anarchy as much as I did. I highly recommend checking out their show. As you can tell, they're fun-loving guys, great libertarians, and they're a real blast to hang out with, a real blast to listen to. So, and if you like wine or you don't like wine, it doesn't really matter because you learn so much about how the state interacts with the alcohol industry. I've learned so many little things that I never even thought about when it comes to that stuff, and you learn a lot about wines. So it's fun to listen to. Check it out, Tasting Anarchy. As they mentioned, the bonus content we have in the Lions of Liberty Pride on Patreon at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. It is plentiful. It is a plenty. It keeps on coming. And we had so much fun doing this show that we decided to keep going ourselves for a bonus segment. As we referenced there, we went for almost another hour. So that is on our Patreon right now for our $5 and up subscribers. I, of course, must remind you that 10% of all of our Patreon proceedings for at least March and April, quite possibly longer than that, will be going to help DonorSee and their fight to help people who are being affected by coronavirus, by all the lockdowns and shutdowns all around the world, in the poorest countries in the world. And I'm going to have an update a little bit later on today with Greg Glyer from DonorSee about the two projects that we were able to help finish funding for Lions of Liberty. We were able to close those projects out. So the Lions of Liberty Pride, their money directly went to help people around the world. I'm so proud we're able to do this, able to work with a great organization like DonorSee to help people. It's really voluntarism, truly in action. And I'm so proud to be a part of just helping people in little ways, helping people that really, truly, truly need the help. I mean, we think our lives are inconvenient right now. Imagine being in a small village in Malawi. I mean, if they get hit by this coronavirus, the effects are just like 10 times worse, exponentially worse, because of what little infrastructure they already have to deal with even normal things, even things we take for granted. So please do check out all of DonorSee's work and projects they're funding with coronavirus over at DonorSee.com/coronavirus. Stay tuned a little later on today for an update with myself and Gret Glyer on the projects we were able to help fund. And of course, again, please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. If you are new here, we do have 3 shows per week, although lately we've had more because I'm on lockdown here in California. I'm doing a bunch more content than I have before. I've been doing a bunch of live streams, did one with Mikkel Thorup last week, as well as Matt Erickson from Wealth, Power, and Influence with Jason Stapleton. Had a great time doing those. I have a couple more coming this week, including with our friend Raylene Lightheart from Blastoff. So stay tuned to the Lions of Liberty Facebook page. That's at facebook.com/Lions of Liberty. I'm doing a lot of those live streams. I'm just bringing people on with very little plan and just talking about what's going on with coronavirus, the lockdowns, all the effects that we've seen out there. So stay tuned for all of that stuff, and stay tuned to this feed for some extra shows, because I will, of course, publish all of that stuff in podcast form as well. But besides me yapping here every single Monday and whenever else I decide to put another show up, we've got Brian McWilliams slapping you upside the head every single Wednesday with his special brand of comedy, culture, and liberty on Electric Liberty Land, while John Odie Odermatt wraps things up with his always inspiring look at the broken criminal justice system every single Friday on Felony Friday. You just got to hit that subscribe button. While you're there, maybe leave us a 5-star rating and a great review. If you like it, it still helps. It still always helps to have more of those reviews. You can never have too many. iTunes is still the hub. So if you can get over there, even if that's not where you listen, if you can leave us a 5-star rating and a great review, we always do appreciate it. We are constantly growing, constantly getting bigger, and it is thanks to you guys spreading the word. Through word of mouth has always been the main way that this show has grown. And ain't no coronavirus gonna hold us down. In fact, it's actually freed me up to do even more content, so that's what you're getting. So continue to keep your eye on that Lions of Liberty feed. And until next time, my friends,
Live long and live free.